Well, yeah. Hi, Allison. Ellison, what have you been hearing?
Hey, Savannah, yeah, so we've been watching just in the last little bit here as we've seen police on this opposite side of the Capitol start to use more tear gas on the crowd that is gathered over there. Not tear gas, we believe it. It seems to be some sort of mace or pepper spray that they're using on the crowd there. We had been told that some of those protesters were possibly breaking windows, and that's what led to the use of that pepper spray. You can see right over here, we're starting now to see Capitol Police gathering here. They seem to be huddling, discussing possibly getting ready for something. But all evening since we saw those barricades first come down as protesters rushed to the front of the Capitol, Capitol Police have largely kind of stood back. We've seen them kind of waiting up on different parts of the steps there as the protesters made their way up closer. You can see people standing on an armored vehicle here holding flags, the American flag upside down, a Trump 2020 flag just underneath it. About 10 minutes ago, we were up closer to those stairs, and somebody came on a bullhorn, a protester, saying that President Trump says that we should go home. He wants you to go home. Other people in the crowd pushed back on that person, and he said, I know, I understand you want to be here, but he's saying that we should go home. Another person then got on top of that armored vehicle and started yelling at people through the bullhorn to come back. So for now, it seems like there is still a large group of people here who do not have any plans to leave in the immediate upcoming future. I mean, this group, it is not as big as it was a couple of hours ago, but there are still people on these steps who seem to have no plans to leave anytime soon. People that we have seen come out claiming to have been inside the U.S. Capitol. They are greeted kind of as heroes by the crowd here when they come out and they talk about their experience inside. And we saw some people actually following, kind of tracking closely behind a few police in riot gear, calling them traitors for whatever happened inside the U.S. Capitol and berating them as they made their way across the front here. Savannah?
Ellison Barber, a correspondent on the ground there outside the Capitol. I want to go to a news conference underway now. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., who's called a 6 o'clock curfew for the Capitol, so let's listen in.
This afternoon, I announced a citywide curfew for the District of Columbia beginning at 6 p.m. this evening, going until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. During the curfew, no one is allowed to be outside in public places other than essential workers, which includes credentialed media engaging in essential functions. As you can see from video images, the unlawful behavior inside the United States Capitol building. I continue to urge all Washingtonians to stay home and stay calm. And if you see something, say something. But above all, stay home. The behavior that we are witnessing is shameful, unpatriotic, and above all, it is unlawful. Anyone who has engaged in these activities, continues to engage in these activities, will be held accountable. There will be law and order, and this behavior will not be tolerated. The Metropolitan Police Department has been deployed to assist the United States Capitol Police in restoring order to the Capitol, and our Chief of Police will lead the command to clear the Capitol building and establish a perimeter around the Capitol. I have requested both the Virginia State Police and the Maryland State Police to deploy officers, and they have engaged immediately to deploy officers to the Metropolitan Police Department to help regain control of the United States Capitol. I have also invoked several days ago a standing mutual aid agreement with our surrounding jurisdictions, and I want to thank them for deploying. Those jurisdictions include Arlington County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, as well as Baltimore City. We want to thank them for sending their officers in assisting us with public safety in the district, as well as the response to the United States Capitol building. Additionally, I want to acknowledge and thank the New Jersey State Police, who will also be assisting the Metropolitan Police Department. So with that, I want to turn to Chief Conte for a situational update. Secretary of the Army will make comments, and we will take brief questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, and thank you, Mayor Bowser. My name is Robert J. Conte III. I am the Chief of the Police of the Metropolitan Police Department here in Washington, D.C. As you are aware, demonstrators came to our city this morning to exercise their First Amendment rights and were largely concentrated in the area of the National Mall. Following the President's remarks, a large crowd began to march eastbound on Madison Avenue Northwest and Constitution Avenue Northwest. As the demonstrators approached the United States Capitol grounds, there was a noticeable change in their demeanor. They breached the fencing along the U.S. Capitol grounds and confronted police lines surrounding the building. MPD was requested by the United States Capitol Police to provide assistance with crowd management, and due to the violent behavior towards the police officers there and their intent on gaining access to the Capitol, a riot was declared. It was clear that the crowd was intent on causing harm to our officers by deploying chemical irritants on police to force entry into the United States Capitol building. As you are aware, they were able to gain access to the Capitol building, and I can confirm that one civilian was reported to have sustained a gunshot wound inside of the Capitol. Details of the shooting are not immediately available, and the situation remains under investigation. The Metropolitan Police Department will be taking the lead on that investigation. MPD continues to provide personnel resources and assistance on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol and has requested the assistance of law enforcement partners through a previously in place mutual aid agreement. As you heard from the mayor, a 6 p.m. curfew has been put in place tonight and will be in effect until 6 a.m. tomorrow, January 7th. We are advising everyone that is not engaged in essential activity to get off the streets and adhere to the curfew. If you are found to be in violation of the curfew, police will be required to take action. Again, I want to reiterate and make it clear, please abide by the curfew that the mayor has set in place, or people will be subject to arrest. Lastly, I know that many of you are familiar with the Metropolitan Police Department. Understand that there is no better agency in the country to handle First Amendment events. They happen on a regular basis here in our city. However, today's events were not representation of peaceful protests. Today, what we witnessed was unlawful, riotous behavior. And people that come to our city engaged in unlawful behavior will be held accountable. We can take any questions that you may have after the Secretary has a chance to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser, Chief Conte. At around 3 o'clock this afternoon, we mobilized the D.C. National Guard to 100% strength. We'll have 1,100 personnel that are convening to the Armory as we speak to support Metro PD and reestablishing the safety and the confines of the U.S. Capitol. We'll also be working with other federal law enforcement entities that are going to be coming here to the Metropolitan Police Station to add additional support and capability as they continue deliberate planning and looking at how a clearing operation will be conducted. Thank you.
And how does this work? This phone? Okay.
So Evan from Fox 5 in Mariel to repeat the question.
Okay.
Evan, did you want to say his name?
Evan?
Yeah, hi, Mayor and Chief Conte. Could you please speak to the confusion surrounding the deployment of the National Guard? We understand that the council put out a statement saying that originally the Department of Defense
We've been listening into a news conference from the mayor of Washington, D.C. and several officials, including the head of the Metropolitan Police Department, and with their plans on how to get this under control. The National Guard in D.C. has been activated, as we just learned. The Metropolitan Police Chief was very clear that what had started as lawful demonstrations quickly escalated as a group of protesters came close to the Capitol. He said that violent behavior toward police unfolded, including the firing of irritants, some kind of irritants toward police, which allowed them to breach the fence and the police line. And according to the chief of police, a riot was declared. He said this town is very used to people coming and protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights. This was not that. This was a riot, according to Metropolitan Police. And we're learning a bit more now about the plans to get this under control. It involves involves National Guard, it involves FBI, it involves the Metropolitan Police Department, it involves the Capitol Police. We've heard word of the Virginia National Guard being called in, or at least requested. We'll see if we start to see some of that personnel. Let me turn to Janet Napolitano for purposes of the discussion here, former Homeland Security Secretary in the Obama administration. And Secretary Napolitano, first of all, just your thoughts. I mean, you aren't near Washington, I don't think, or not in the Capitol, but when you see these images and what has unfolded today, as a former Homeland Security official whose job was to protect the homeland, what do you think?
Oh, it's a dark day for our country. And, you know, when I was Secretary of Homeland Security, we did all kinds of scenario planning for attacks on the homeland. But this is akin to an attack from inside the homeland on the functions of our democracy, on our government. And like I said, it is a dark day.
I mean, when you see that the Senate and the House have to be evacuated, that the session has to be stopped, it is an extraordinary moment. And I, of course, don't want to ask for any inside information, but if you could help us as the former Homeland Security understand, you know, what kind of planning is underway for this kind of situation. Perhaps this couldn't be imagined, where American citizens, our own people, would storm the Capitol and put in danger members of the United States Congress and their staffs. But certainly an attack on the Capitol is something you would have had to contemplate in your past job.
Certainly, and there are procedures in place for what's called continuity of government to secure the members of the House and the Senate should there be an attack. These were procedures developed in the wake of the attacks of 9/11, as a matter of fact. You know, it's interesting to me, however, and there'll be after-action reports on this up the wazoo, but it was very foreseeable that there was going to be tremendous protest activity in Washington today, incited by the president himself. And one has to question what kind of pre-event planning went on. Certainly the presence of law enforcement now is arriving, and they're absolutely essential, and we absolutely need them. But you know, I'm just comparing it to the way law enforcement handled the event at Lafayette Park last spring, when the president dispersed peaceful protesters to go do his photo op at the church, you know, holding the Bible. It's a pretty stark contrast, and I think it illustrates a lot about the current administration.
What did you think of the president's remarks? Was that sufficient in your mind to quell the violence, to calm it, to call it off, and to try to get this under control?
No. You know, the president lost this election. That result has been confirmed by every court that has considered the dozens of challenges. The electors have been selected. The votes have been certified by the states. By the way, it's the states who run elections, and it's the states who certify electors. The purpose of today's convening of the joint chambers is almost ceremonial in nature. It's to receive those certified votes, to open the envelopes, and to count them. That's it. It's not a place of objection or allegations of fraud. That's the courts of the United States, and the courts have ruled. So this is over. And what the president should have done is to say that he respects the rule of law, he respects our processes, he respects that on January 20th, Joe Biden will take office as the president of the United States, and these protesters, and I'm almost reluctant reluctant to call them protesters. It's really a mob, but they should disperse and go home. And by the way, those who have committed acts of violence, broken windows, etc., they should be identified and prosecuted.
Well, the head of the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. called them rioters. Secretary Napolitano, thank you for being with us. Yeah, it does seem in the case of those who breached the line and trespassed into the United States Congress, where the public is not allowed. Yeah, that seems an apt description. Thank you, Secretary. I want to say that we've been watching this image on the Capitol grounds, and it does look like some people are being escorted out now by law enforcement. And I want to go to Ellison Barber, who's there. What are you seeing? What's your vantage point?
Hey, Savannah. Yeah, so we saw these police officers in riot gear make their way up the U.S. Capitol steps and started to talk to some of the people that were still there and have gotten them to go down the steps and clear that area with them. There was not a huge group on the steps at the time that the police came up. A lot of people in this area have left, and they say they're heading to the Supreme Court. But they came out in riot gear and were able to kind of slowly push people back off of the steps now down to this area. And it seems like everyone has left as they were asked to. Right before this happened, we did hear someone go on a bullhorn, we were telling you earlier, and say President Trump has said that people should go home and tell people here that they should go home. Some people disagreed with that and pushed back, but obviously as the police have come out in their riot gear here, at least on the steps at this part of the U.S. Capitol, the people who were up there have come down now. And I don't know if you can see some of, if we can walk a little this way, we don't want to get too close, but I don't know if you can see some of what's been left on these cars that are over here. People have put up signs as they had this is really the first time this area has kind of been cleared out today, but you can see some of the signs on the cars back there saying things like Pelosi is Satan. People have been standing on top of that car, that armored vehicle, in the middle for most of the day. They have now come down, though, and it seems like perhaps Capitol Police, for the first time in quite a few hours, have started to get back control of this area, and for now they're standing up there. Some people you can see standing in front of them with the join or die flag, not leaving entirely, but they have backed them down from up near the front of the door where they had been for so many hours now. Savannah?
Ellison, you said somebody got on a bullhorn and said President Trump said to go home. Was that law enforcement or was that a fellow protester? Who said that? Could you tell?
That was a protester, Savannah. They were actually kind of in the middle of the stairs, and they came on and they said President Trump posted this. Somebody else said no. He said President Trump said he doesn't want any violence. They yelled, "We're not being violent." Then somebody else, disagreeing with the person telling people to go home, stood up on top of that black armored vehicle and started yelling at people who were leaving to come back, saying that they needed to fight, that they needed to
here in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Hill. Think about how depressing this is. He said the next time we're going to come back with weapons. This man who's part of a militia group in Florida, and that's not the first time that I'm hearing this. I've been out here all day. One of the questions I've been asking folks throughout the day is, did it have to go this far? Someone has been injured. Someone has been shot. The halls of the Capitol have been breached. Is this what you wanted to see happen? And so many folks have said to me over and over again out here, this is what needs to happen because they feel as if the election has been stolen. They're using words that the president himself has used over and over again, like communism and socialism, and feeling like the country is playing into the hands of socialism. It is an unbelievable sight to see. A couple of hours ago when Katie was on air, Katie Turner was on air, she talked about the fact that what are other countries going to see when they're looking at what's happening in this country. I've covered a lot of those situations in other countries, specifically in the Middle East. I think countries like Egypt, for instance, and Iran are looking at this, folks in those countries, and saying, this is the kind of thing that we deal with in our country pretty often. And yet, this is the United States of America, and we're hearing it here. And then you just heard that sound. We've been hearing that all day. I'm not quite sure what that is, guys, that sound that you've heard repeatedly. It might be a pepper ball spray. We don't know what it is because we have been seeing smoke billowing from the top left corner of the inauguration balcony over to your left. We're seeing some lights, a spotlight from where that noise was coming. But again, it seems at this point, yes, people are yelling at the camera. That's what they do out here. That's to be expected. So apologies in advance if anybody says anything of any profane nature. But at this point, it seems like people are beginning to dissipate. It's pretty cold out here. There is a 6 p.m., I believe, curfew in place that the mayor had put out a couple of hours ago. That's kind of causing people to disperse a little bit more. But man, oh man, guys, it has been quite a day so far to see this site, knowing what it looks like normally. And then again, there's that smoke from the middle of that inauguration balcony coming out. We don't know what it is. We're seeing flash grenades go off. I believe that's what that sound is flash grenades going off on the inauguration balcony. That is where the president-elect, when inaugurated on January 20th, will be standing, taking the oath of office. But today, 2 weeks before that moment, we're seeing flash grenades going off over and over again as Capitol Police are trying to disperse crowds there. It is an unbelievable sight. It seems like people are beginning to retreat from that area. And think about what is happening inside as you guys have been talking to Garrett Haake. Again, there we go.
Yasmin, I want to say two things, and then I'm going to turn this back over to you. One, if you need to move to a safer location, just scamper away, and we will assume that is what you have done. Two, if your cameraman can go back to the area where the sounds, the flashbangs seem to be coming from, and the smoke, could we stay on that?
Yeah, Miguel. So Miguel, just make sure we're focusing on where the sound is coming from, the flash grenades. So I think, guys, it's coming from the center area of the inauguration balcony where we've been seeing that flash grenade. I don't know how many you guys counted that just took place in the last couple of minutes or so, maybe 3 or 4 flashbangs that we heard in the last couple of minutes. They seem to have ceased for the moment, and folks seem to be retreating at this point pretty quickly, to say the least. And there you go again. Miguel, focus in on the smoke that's coming out of that center area.
Yasmin, do we know if they're being put off by the protesters or the police?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to make... Sorry, there it was again. That's tear gas. So that's tear gas. Yeah, that's tear gas, guys. Let's move this way. Let's move away. We're going to be in the...
Yasmin, you and Miguel get somewhere safe for us. I want to pull Brian Williams back into this. Brian.
And I, in turn, want to bring Vaughn Hilliard in. Vaughn is among our correspondents out there as well. We appear to be watching, in the center of the screen there, the archway doorway that has a couple of chandeliers visible in the distance. We've seen humans up there kind of breaching the entrance. We can see one exiting now over what was once glass windows. Vaughn, where are you in relation to Yasmin? Are we correct that these are chemical disbursements and not any kind of fireworks, which were also used today?
Yeah. Brian, I think that you may be looking at the straight-on shot that our photographer Paul Rigney is shooting on here. We're just a little bit a ways from where that photographer's podium is at, looking straight on towards that inauguration platform there. This is the first serious action we've taken, or we've seen taken, to move out this insurrection essentially here. Over the course of the last hour, you have seen Capitol Police that you see in the bright green vest slowly, one by one, literally physically pick up these individuals that have been sitting and standing in these seats here, where typically on Inauguration Day, you have lawmakers, you have former presidents, family members of the president that is being sworn in. They have taken those seats. And what you've seen slowly, methodically over the course of the hour is those Capitol Police literally physically pick up and remove those individuals. But what you just saw was that apparently those flashbangs, tear gas, coming from that straight center door where the President of the United States, or ahead of his swearing in, typically walks down before taking the oath of office. And that is where these individuals had broken multiple panes of glass, had essentially broken into that main lobby area right outside of the scaffolding of the Capitol, and yet the doors ultimately kept more individuals from ultimately getting inside the heart of the Capitol. But that's where you saw these flashbangs come from, apparently working from within, pushing people out. And that's where you have seen now a much more, just over the last 5 minutes, an effort to push these individuals out. Again, that 6 p.m. curfew, I think, is worth noting here, because what you saw over the course of these last hours, Brian, was not only just a couple hundred individuals enter the Capitol, but you had thousands, if not more than 10,000 individuals watching an insurrection, a takeover of the United States Capitol building. We were out here among this crowd as there were smiles, there was cheering, there were chants of fight for Trump. Ultimately, what I think you are seeing right now is, if I made the last stand here, these are the last maybe 1,000, 2,000 folks that are here. You just saw another flash grenade up in the air here. Brian, I think over the course of the next hour is when you'll see this effort. We have seen essentially nobody but those Capitol Police officers that you see up there on the Capitol. As Paul tries to film while walking backwards here, you have seen no other police presence. There was even a medical emergency that we watched. There were no medics around. There was no other law enforcement around. There is no, you can see one police car out in the distance. There's no National Guard presence.
Vaughn
Essentially,
Hilliard,
the U.S. Capitol grounds looking back to the National Mall. It's a good question, Nicole. I got to tell you here, you know, I'm standing here looking actually behind where Paul is at right now, towards the towards the Washington Monument. And there were thousands here. And I got to tell you, it was something to hear Congressman Mo Brooks, one of those first individuals at the rally this morning, say that today is the day that patriots will begin to take names and kiss ass, or kick ass, and that it was Rudy Giuliani who then took the mic and said that there is going to be trial by combat. And quite frankly, the Capitol grounds here, all the way back to the Lincoln Memorial, essentially the land has been ceded here. And I think what you're now seeing is this effort here over the course of these next minutes to try to push these individuals out of this area here. I got to read you one sign that I've kept looking at repeatedly, Nicole, if I could. It said, "We the people will bring D.C. to its knees. We have the power," that has been hanging up over just to the left of the scaffolding on the Capitol here. Again, 2 weeks from now, this is where Joe Biden is set to be inaugurated as President of the United States. And yet, this is the scene that we're watching here in Washington, D.C. as the sun goes down.
Vaughn, have you had any access to any law enforcement, either local, state, or federal, that can answer the question why such a different response to an attempt to take over the United States Capitol than to the largely peaceful protest in Lafayette Square, which was militarized? General Milley roamed the streets in fatigues that he wears in Fallujah.
Nicole, I got to be honest with you. The best source of information that I've been getting and our team out here has been getting is via you guys, listening to you in our ears, because email is down. We can hardly send out a text message. There is no law enforcement to communicate with. Several of the streets, there's about a 2-mile square radius here around Washington, D.C. The streets were supposed to be closed, but as we made our way down here at around high noon, there were cars that were still going through, and we watched police vehicles struggle to get here to the Capitol grounds. Police officers getting out of their cars to conduct traffic here. Again, these were streets that were supposed to be shut down, and it was clear that by the time the insurrection inside of this U.S. Capitol started happening, it was too late as police vehicles tried to make their way from other parts of D.C. to try to get down here to those grounds.
Von Hilliard,
and again, if I could,
go ahead.
You know, the question about the President of the United States video, you know, it would be great if in some way people could actually see that. But frankly, you can't upload a video here. You can't send a photo here. Essentially, any form of communication is absent here on the United States Capitol grounds right now.
Von Hilliard, do you feel safe?
I feel good. We've got our own private security here. We're standing back. Paul Rigney is our great photographer, Todd. We're good out here on these Capitol grounds right now, Nicole. Thank you for asking.
Vaughn, please come back with everything and anything you've got there. More questions come to my mind from all your great reporting than I think we have answers. We'll keep coming to you. Stay with us, my friend. I'm going to turn things over to Rachel Maddow.
We're going to bring back into the conversation now somebody else who is inside the Capitol. Joining us now on the phone from the Capitol complex is Democratic Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania. She's former U.S. Army Air Force, U.S. Air Force officer, and she's inside the Capitol grounds now. Congresswoman Houlihan, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here. We have Congresswoman Houlihan joining us. I think we have lost that connection.
I am.
Oh, great. Congresswoman, I'm sorry that we had a delay there. Can you hear me? This is Rachel Maddow in New York. Hi, Congresswoman. Can you hear me?
Hello.
All right. We'll come back to Congresswoman Houlihan when we can establish that connection. What we're looking at here are live shots of Capitol Hill. 5:02 sunset in Washington tonight. We still do not have clarity in terms of what we were seeing in terms of gas on the balcony area of the Capitol that we're seeing sort of center stage there. Obviously, that's a familiar scene from the inauguration, from inaugurations past, and from the inauguration that we will have in 2 weeks. We also heard recently, just moments ago, from Congressman Jason Crow, saying that as far as he's concerned, as far as he and his staff have been advised, it's not at all clear that the interior of the Capitol is secure. As Von Hilliard was just explaining, it's hard to get communication and media uploaded, for example, in and around the Capitol right now. We're able to see what we can from these professional crews that we've got there. I will note that there have been some reports that journalists and TV crews have been attacked by protesters, and so the people who are doing their work to bring you these images right now are themselves being brave in doing so. The Capitol Police and other law enforcement that we can see on hand, it's puzzling and sort of hard to understand why we haven't seen more arrests and why the protesters have been allowed to persist on the steps and at the doors of the Capitol. And here you see protesters apparently taunting or yelling at the protesters, or yelling at the police. These scenes this has been going on for 3 hours now. It feels like about 3 years, I will tell you. But again, getting live reports from what's happening inside the Capitol complex is difficult. We're bringing you as much live reporting as we can. I believe we've reconnected now to Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan. Congresswoman, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
I apologize for those earlier technical difficulties. Can you just tell us, Congresswoman, what your experience has been today, where you are to the extent that you can tell us that, and what you've seen?
Sure, of course. My experience has been not dissimilar from other people, other members of Congress. I represent a community in Pennsylvania just outside of Philadelphia, so I spent most of the morning and a little bit of the early afternoon preparing for what I expect would be a contested conversation about the results of Pennsylvania. I finished working with my delegation on that at around the 1 o'clock time frame and began my journey into the office right around the time when I walked by the Capitol steps and watched the people literally, crashing the gates of the People's House. And it was one of the most offensive, disappointing, devastating, saddening, maddening scenes that I never thought I would see in our country. I am now safely within the Capitol building, and I am eager and ready and resolved to get back to work, to the work of the people, to move this process forward, and to make sure that in another several days or so that we have newly minted President Biden.
Congresswoman, what can you tell us about the security of the Capitol complex right now? We have footage that we've been airing live showing the outside of the Capitol, including the area that's set up with the bleachers and such for the soon-to-be inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But inside the Capitol complex, we've had sort of mixed reporting as to whether or not the rioters have been cleared and whether or not law enforcement has been able to secure the interior of the complex.
So I am, like many others, sort of hunkered down and watching some of the images that you all are bringing us, and it would appear as though it is a mixed bag. It looks as though some places have been secured and cleared. It looks as though others are still compromised. And until such time as they are cleared and safe and swept, we can't return to the business of the House and the business of the people. I have heard conversation that we may move to some other location, but I haven't heard confirmation of that.
Is it your impression that members of Congress themselves, you and your colleagues who are elected in the House, have been in danger today? We heard a dramatic account from a congressman from Colorado earlier about being one of 15 or so members who were ordered essentially to shelter in place inside the House chamber as rioters tried to break down those doors. We've seen images of furniture piled up against the doors, which seems like it ought to be Plan Z in terms of defending members of Congress, not anything that we'd have to resort to when we could see something like this coming. Have members of Congress been personally in danger today?
I also have seen some of those images, and I'm assuming that the congressman that you're speaking about is Jason Crow of Colorado, and he and I share in common a veteran heritage. I served in the Air Force, he in the Army, and this is definitely not what you expect to see unfolding on the floor of the House of Representatives. And there certainly are scenes that we have seen where our members of our Congress have been in danger and in peril, as have, frankly, the Capitol Police and other people who are charged with our protection. And this is untenable, absolutely unacceptable behavior on the part of it could be described as nothing other than a mob.
This mob in the Capitol didn't come out of nowhere. The president has been demanding or telling his supporters to come to Washington today, promising them, quote, "will be wild." The president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, today said that what will happen for the rest of the day will be trial by combat. The president today called for a march on the Capitol and said he would accompany these protesters. He then put out a video message tonight continuing to stoke this grievance that the election was stolen from him and telling the protesters that he loves them. It does feel, as night falls in Washington, it does feel like this is not ending. And the incitement that led to this is still active. A lot of people have talked, including the president-elect has talked about wanting the president to step up and do the right thing, wanting Republicans to step up and do the right thing here. What do you think should happen here? How do you think this can and should resolve?
Well, wasn't it refreshing to see President-elect Biden take, the stage and be presidential? Isn't that something that we all deserve, regardless of our partisan affiliation? And I expect from our leaders exactly that. I expect that from President Trump, which is not something that we've seen over the course of the last 4 years. And what we are seeing certainly is a failure of leadership. Leadership is not just about leading, but it's also it's about educating. It's about setting expectations. It's not about just representing people, but rather helping them to understand the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And this is something that this president has failed to do. And frankly, though, what I would also say is there a responsibility on the part of these individuals? These people woke up and made choices. They made their way to the steps of the Capitol building with malicious intent, and they also have responsibility as well. We cannot lay all of this on the feet of our leadership.
The pictures that we are seeing right now on the screen may eventually be pictures that are cited in affidavits and prosecutions in the future, if what you're saying is correct. Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania, good luck to you and your colleagues tonight. Please stay safe. Please keep us apprised as this long night in Washington starts to unfold, Congresswoman. Thank you.
Thank you. You as well. Bye-bye.
Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Garrett Hake standing by to rejoin us. Garrett, I'm tempted to echo what so many are saying on social media and say that if it was the president's plan to hold a Bible aloft on the grounds of the Capitol, it sure would have been cleared much earlier than now. That is to say that while there appears to be a commander of this effort and something close to an organized effort to get people out, no one's in any hurry. No one is showing any of the tactics near what you and I witnessed during the hot nights of this summer when the rioters were alleged to be all connected to the Black Lives Matter movement. These rioters are connected to the President of the United States and his colleagues in the House and Senate. But Garrett, be that as it may, you have, I'm told, something of a damage assessment from inside the hallways we're watching right now.
Yeah, Brian, notwithstanding the comparison to June, which was a very different situation and is starting to have some similarities, which I'll get to in a minute, I can tell you that the lockdown here on Capitol Hill is lifting just a little bit. That video you're seeing now, I actually just shot that on my cell phone a few minutes ago. Those are Virginia State Police officers in the Dirksen Senate office building, making their way through the tunnels that we've been talking about all day into the Capitol. I only shot a few seconds of video, but by my count, there was several dozen, maybe as many as 50 of these officers, including heavily armed SWAT officers of the Virginia State Police, all working their way through the Capitol. You've seen those deployments of flashbangs and smoke on the steps of the Capitol. That is not dissimilar to how we saw Metropolitan Police clear Black Lives Matter Plaza back in May and in June. And it appears likely from where I'm standing now that this is what we're getting ready to see again. You've got those heavily armed officers who are now inside the Capitol building. I could hear some of their radios talking about a couple of folks who were locked in rooms in the Capitol. It wasn't clear whether these were people who did so intentionally or found themselves stranded from their fellow rioters in the Capitol and locked in rooms unintentionally. But now on Constitution Avenue, just outside the office building where I'm standing, there are several dozen, perhaps as many as 100 up-armored MPD officers staging to clear this area, likely probably right at 6 o'clock, like we saw in the protests over the course of the summer. Remember, D.C.'s under a 6 o'clock curfew. At 8 p.m., the public transportation system here is shut down. And what MPD typically does, as I've become all too familiar with, is they're going to move through this area and try to push all of these protesters outside, I would say, rioters inside. They're going to try to push them all in one direction. They don't have the numbers to do mass arrests. I think that was part of the problem earlier today. They were just functionally completely outnumbered. But it's generally the way MPD does this is when they're trying to shut things down, when they're trying to enforce a curfew, they're just going to push everybody in one direction. My guess is probably west, down the mall, back towards where this rally started this morning, and just try to force them out of this space. And we're going to see that come into action here in the next 30 minutes or so.
I've seen two things of note. Number one, a mention on social media that perhaps the rioters used chemical dispersants of their own to get the better of the Capitol police officers at several points on their way to occupying these buildings. And there are pictures out of rioters inside the Speaker's office at Nancy Pelosi's desk. A note they left for Nancy Pelosi at her desk. Senator Duckworth said in an interview earlier this evening that it was a sharp-eyed Senate aide who, on their way out of the chamber, thought to reach back and grab the Electoral College certificates, what we were supposed to be covering today. So just as a matter of chance and happenstance, they were grabbed and preserved because, of course, the Senate chamber was taken over in this unbelievable day, which our friend Steve Schmidt has called a moment of humiliation for the United States. Garrett?
Well, Brian, that Senate aide's going to end up being one of the heroes of this day for taking those Electoral College ballots out of the Senate chamber. The Senate chamber itself is just a room in terms of how all this gets done. There are a number of large rooms in the Capitol that are essentially designated as contingency areas where the Senate and the House can conduct their business if, the Capitol should be deemed unsafe. There are rooms in these various office buildings where they can do their work, but they needed these physical documents, the form of the Electoral College votes, the affidavits from the states, as well as, by the way, the objections, which we may still hear from members when this process resumes, have to be submitted in writing. Those pieces of paper are actually important to the process. On your point about, just chemical agents being used by the rioters, that is entirely possible. We're trying to reverse engineer how these folks got into the buildings in the first place. As you know, this Capitol complex is enormous, not just the Capitol itself, which is the most secure, but, multiple House and Senate side office buildings, all of which are connected through a network of tunnels. When this started earlier today, the first building to be locked down was the Cannon office building on the House side, and we sort of saw this roll across the Capitol from the House side of things north to the Senate side. And, if I were a betting man, I'd say that's probably where this started, just because the office buildings tend to have more entrances and fewer police stationed around them at any given time. I think that'll probably be part of what I suspect will be a pretty comprehensive review of this whole day that's going to have to be conducted at some point by Capitol Police.
And indeed, Garrett, while you're talking, we see members of the Metropolitan Police. Again, for folks watching not familiar with D.C., it's in effect the DCPD. It's the District of Columbia Police Department that has always gone under the title Metropolitan Police. And as Garrett pointed out earlier, in the District of Columbia, you have an amalgam of law enforcement agencies. You've got the Federal Protection Service. You've got Capitol Police, Secret Service, Park Police, on and on and on. And right now, Garrett, we've got state police from Virginia and Maryland who have come into the district with permission to help get the upper hand over these rioters.
Yeah, and that in and of itself isn't that unusual because of the weird nature of the Federal District of Columbia and the states that surround it, Maryland and Virginia. The law enforcement agencies here work together all the time. Usually there's mutual aid requests that go out, if it's anything from a car chase that goes from one to the other, or if you need additional forces. The Arlington Police Department, for example, the big Virginia suburb, helps out DC police quite a bit. I think in this case, you saw the deployment of state police officers and even the National Guard under control of their governors in Virginia and Maryland, moving quite quickly to help DC address this issue. It should be said that the DC police, the MPD, they deal with large-scale protests on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. That is not uncommon here. And even the handoff between them and the Capitol Police isn't the kind of thing that should have caused this breakdown today that led to this situation where so many people were able to get into the Capitol. It is not unusual to see giant protests across the district handled very professionally by this alphabet soup of law enforcement agencies. What happened today is just an incredibly unusual breakdown, and it's going to need to be thoroughly investigated. It's just not normal. These law enforcement agencies have too much experience with events just like this all the time.
Garrett Haake, don't go anywhere. We're going to bring into our conversation right now California Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. She's calling us from her office where she is hearing flashbangs outside her window. Congresswoman, how are you?
I'm well, a little bit rattled, and I am not in my office. I am in an undisclosed location in the Capitol complex.
Don't tell us where you are. I want to ask you, Garrett Haake, our correspondent on Capitol Hill, just said none of this is normal. What would something inching more toward normal look like? What should be happening?
Well, as somebody said earlier, the Capitol is not a stranger to protests of all kinds. We have protests, people come to protest at the Capitol all the time, but this is a violent riot.
Lou, how you doing?
Wow, did that day deteriorate rapidly?
I will make the argument that this thing has escalated over 4 years.
Yeah, you're right.
That will be my argument.
And I would say it's longer than that. Trump, I'd say it's taken 25, but Trump actually got it to move along an extra 10 years quicker.
Yeah, he made it quicker. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
I'm hoping we're witnessing the last vestige of colonialism and white supremacy, but I know it's going to take a long time to beat.
I have more than a couple thoughts about this. What's your feeling right now? How are you feeling when you're seeing this? What's going through your head? What are you what are you feeling? And I should preface this by saying I feel really bad that I put my Reebok hoodie on instead of my Under Armour. But
I don't have a Reebok. I got a new Adidas for Christmas though.
well, you see what I mean. I should have worn my Under Armour. But in any case, go on. What this has been going on since I want to say what 2:30 our time.
They just said 3 hours now.
Ah, that'd be 2:30. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you're about right, 2:30. Because I was out today to a job site. I was measuring. I was figuring numbers here, and I saw stuff starting to come across Twitter when I looked.
I have the A word in my Jeep, right? You know, not the Google one, the Amazon one. I don't want to say her name because it just leads to shit in my house if I do that. And I told her I was in my parking lot at work, and I got in my Jeep, and I said, "Hey, turn on CNN." And it started talking about this riot and people attacking the Capitol building and storming the Capitol building. Actually, I'm thinking, man, I hope they're hyping shit up, you know. And then I got on Mount Jackson Hill, and I'm on my way up the hill, right? So you know where I'm at. And my wife calls me, and she said, where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm almost home. Why?" And she said, "Are you listening to what's going on?" And I said, "Oh," that's when I knew, oh shit, this is worse than I was hoping it would be.
You know what? I expected violence today. What I did not expect was why were they not with because you just saw the Maryland State Police and Virginia State Police are there now. Why were they not there sooner as a preventative measure? They had to know. I mean, anybody in the range should have known that, and he did it. He just said, "What would that asshole say? They're trying to steal it from us. Go to the Capitol," and they did.
Yeah, I was well, there's a few things to dissect here. They had enough foresight to set a curfew, right? 6 o'clock curfew, isn't it?
6 o'clock, actually.
6 o'clock, right? So halfway through our show today, if you think things went to shit 3 hours ago, just wait, right? Because it's going to get worse.
And it's dark now.
And it's dark now, right? So they had the foresight to put in this curfew, which if the BLM protest showed us anything, it's that curfews just intensify things, right? You almost just want shit to play out. Don't just let them have their say and whatever, and let them go, right? Which was one of the two big mistakes that I think that people in authority made with the BLM protests, with the George Floyd protests, whatever you want to call them, right? I think that was one of the two big mistakes that they had. The other one was trying to funnel people in a certain direction instead of just letting them do their march and be done with it. In this case, they're not marching anywhere. They're already they're at their destination. Okay, they're where they want to be. I almost would have liked to have seen them deny everything, tell them they can't protest, they can't assemble, they can't do all of this, and let it play out in court. And then whenever they go to court, say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We were wrong. And sorry about that. Fine us whatever you want, right? Because this is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting. That's the first thing. The second thing is, why did you wait so long to call out the National Guard? Why were they not on the steps of the Capitol building at 8 o'clock this morning? Right? Because you knew this shit was going to happen here. And the other thing I will tell you is, boy, the authorities, for lack of a better term, the people who can call out the National Guard, the people who can do this, they were really, really quick whenever Trump wanted to get a photo up at a church and hold a Bible upside down. Why did this take so long?
Trump supporters,
right?
In the ranks.
Why did?
To me, how did some of them get through into the Capitol to begin with?
Well, there's a lot of questions we have to ask. How the hell did somebody get to get into Pelosi's office? How did they get into the floor of the House? How did that even happen? I mean, Lou, I practice and teach violence, right? And whenever you do that, you have a innate, almost instinct to avoid violence. But these fuckers should have been shot as soon as they walked into the building.
I get this across here. I'm going to send this link to you on Discord. This is an interesting link. Because phones are everywhere.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go.
Wow, Lou, did I screw that up?
And
hold on, folks. Honest, boy, did I screw that up. Let me see what I got here. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't share two screens at the same time, so you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to. Oops, wait, can't do that either. Folks, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to put up with me for a second, okay? Because I got to share the audio too. Okay, here we go. Let's see what we got here. Let's share this shit. Oh wait, wrong one. God damn it, Lou. I blame this on you. So was it on Reddit? It was on Reddit, huh?
I thought that was TikTok there. Or did I go through Reddit?
Wait. What do we got here? Let me do this. Oh, no, it was just Twitter. Okay. That's better. Okay. See, now I'm on the ball here. You caught me off guard. Okay, I'm probably catching hell. My phone's starting to blow up. I'm probably catching hell right now. Just bear with me one more second. Okay. God, I screwed this up so bad. Well, I don't even have it now. Come on, man. Lou, we were better off just talking about it.
Yeah, there's the same film, and somebody slowed it down here too. Basically, you have the police officer opening the gate for the Capitol.
Here we go. Let's see what we got here.
police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just reached the Capitol again. Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just reached the Capitol again. Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just reached the Capitol again.
I mean, they literally moved the gates for them.
Yeah, kind of. No such thing as white privilege, though, is there?
No. No. They literally moved the gates for them. This was probably one of the most dishonorable things I've ever seen in my life. All right, Lou. Sources tell me that the FBI has called this an act of war. Also, I was told to either talk louder or move closer to your mic. Lou, we've seen some shit since basically since 9/11, right? I mean, if you want to use that as a starting point, we've seen some shit, and we've seen a lot of things, and I've said quite a few times that this was a sad day, this was an embarrassing day, this was that. This is the first day I've ever been embarrassed to be American. You know,
You realize this is streaming all over the world, and Putin's sitting there smiling.
the whole world is looking at a whole bunch of people, and I've gotten texts from friends of mine, people I consider friends, a couple I consider acquaintances. I've had 7. Okay, I've had a total of 7. From people who live overseas. One of them being a grandmaster, who I'm still in contact with, and I'm very happy to say that I am. Who the only thing he texted to me, and here I will read it to you. I'm not going to say his name. And his question was, and this is a quote: Patsy, what the fuck is wrong with your country? It's right there. What do I do? Right? How the fuck how do I answer that? I've had a couple more who said, I cannot believe that you have so many people so committed to one person that they're willing to destroy your country in order to see that person get what he wants. This is how the world is looking at us. And at best, right? The person closest to me of those 7 texts, the person closest to us is 5 hours away. It's 5 hours early. So it's 10:46 at night. And these are the texts I'm getting, right? The Grandmaster, he's in Australia. So it's basically tomorrow there.
Yeah, you had every mainstream media news outlet making money when this asshole was running for president and nobody vetting him. Should have never been elected. Everything he did in New York City during his so-called business day should have been in black and white on every front page. Did not pay contractors, cheated people.
Yep.
Used illegal workers. Everything that he ever did. No, they played games. They didn't think he'd get elected. They underestimated the racism and misogyny in this country. Then every asshole enabled him in the last 4 years. What do you think was going to happen?
I'm real curious, and I really want to know. I really do, because I'm either going to be extremely pissed off or extremely pitiful. I want to know what Miss Lindsay's feeling right now. Right, I want to know what Cruz and who's the other asshole, What? I'm sorry.
Paulie's the one that started it.
I want to know what they're feeling right now. To feel being under siege because they were right because they were all in that chamber whenever this shit happened. How does it feel right now to know that the monster you created came home? Right? How many times, Lou, did we sit here on this show and say, what are these assholes going to do when Frankenstein's monster comes home? What's going to happen? And I told my wife last night, I think. I said, you know who's to blame for all of this? It's John Boehner. And she looked at me. She said, what the hell are you talking about? I said, he's the one that enabled the Tea Party. Is the Tea Party that led to this shit.
And he lost control of it. But the Tea Party was going against the black guys, so he was off the hook. Right? Because it was those Tea Party guys. It was those guys. It wasn't us. It was those guys. Right? That led to the Jim Jordans of the world and the Gateses of the world getting elected. And those assholes led to Trump. And Trump led to this riot. And I don't know if you caught it. I switched on the TV to see what the hell was going on. And I very seldom do it when I'm working here. But I had to bring it on to see. And that's, it happened to turn on when they were hauling that one person out that was shot. So I don't know.
That woman.
It did not look good. My God. And they went off of it real quick. I thought I heard somebody say, take that off. But
Probably. Yeah, you probably heard that.
I don't think they expected it. They were just filming that area when they came through, They had no way of knowing.
No, you probably.
It was like, my God, what, and I expected it to get bloodier from there when I saw that. Because from what I caught, she was a policewoman there, but I'm not positive.
I don't know. I don't know what her. All they say is she was shot in the chest, right? All it said was a female was shot in the chest. They don't know who she is or who shot her. Was the last I heard.
Yeah.
So you're saying it was a it was a cop?
Well, they weren't. There was a thing. I heard one where they thought she was one of the Capitol Police, but they weren't certain.
I'm sure the Capitol Police would have had vests on, though.
I don't know how far a vest actually protects.
Well, I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. They protect pretty good, especially in especially in the chest area or whatnot. They're
outside onto the armpit area. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. What I will tell you is, for the most part, those things protect pretty good. Okay. I mean, is it possible she got shot under the arm? I don't know. The only report I heard was she was shot in the chest. So I'm thinking just straight on in the chest. And if that's the case, if it was a police officer, she more than likely was wearing her vest, and she should be okay. But from what I heard, she's in ICU. That isn't somebody wearing a vest, because those things don't fail like that. Okay, they really don't.
Well, it might have been. Who knows?
I mean, is it possible it was an officer and she didn't have her vest on? Yeah, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not. Not by any means, but she died. If you look to the left, if you look,
I just saw, and the Capitol Police inside too, like her. Maybe they don't wear vests up inside because they're not expecting people to get in.
Oh, that's possible. I mean, that's incredible. That's absolutely possible. But wow. Lou, this is going to start getting ugly here pretty soon, right? And we'll leave it up here as long as we can. But this isn't good. This is not good at all. And this very easily could have been avoided, right? I wish I had somebody here who could explain to me the mentality or the mental state or whatever you want to call it to be this entrenched in one person, right? Because I can't do that. I can't put my brain around this. How can you be so loyal to one jackass?
And the denial to me is just amazing. Can you imagine anybody you may have supported being that much in denial and making excuses for them?
Well, I can't imagine being that supportive of this supportive of somebody. I mean, I've always looked at whoever this person is, regardless of their position. If I have to vote for them, I always looked at them as my employee, right, or our employee, as the case may be, and not only our employee but our temporary employee. And it's very difficult for me to have this kind of emotional connection to somebody who I hired. I mean, my vote was basically hiring them. I can tell you right now, Lou, my boss, your boss, both, and I know your boss, she is not going to be that entrenched in you, right? She's willing to storm the capital of our country in order to support you. I can tell you right now, my boss isn't that entrenched in me. And I'll be even more honest. I don't want him that entrenched in me because that's a whole problem. That's a bigger problem that we should deal with.
Yeah, I just, you're right. I can't see the mentality in that when you want somebody to tell you every little thing what you need to do. Christ, I know you're like me. If somebody, whether it's right or wrong, if somebody says, you know, Patsy, I want you to go do this, and whether you should or not, my first thought is fuck you. That's my
Yeah.
brain. Like,
I mean, I get that honestly, right? I mean, trust me when I tell you it's inherited, right?
both of us would step back and say, okay,
Get the fuck out of here.
do I want to do it?
And I almost don't want to do it just because you want me to.
Just because, yeah, go do that. Why?
It's the truth, too.
Just, you know.
It's the truth, too.
When Trump first said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and nobody would care, none of his supporters would care. When I first heard that, I'm like, no. Boy, was he right.
What have we said? Right? Confessing or projecting? Right? He knew. He knew. I've never said he was stupid. Right? I said he was a moron about a lot of things. National security, international whatever, how to, keep a wife for more than, 15 years, you can go on and on and on down the line. But I never said he was stupid. And I always said he knew how to play his audience. Right? We've said this forever. If there's one thing this guy is really good at, it's playing his audience. He knows his audience. And he knows how to play them. What I still can't understand, and I mean, we're getting into the weeds here, I know that quite a bit. What I still can't understand is how somebody can be so willing to be manipulated like this, that you're willing to storm the Capitol building of your country over this guy, who at best, let's assume you honestly believe you're right. And let's assume that you honestly believe that this election was stolen from you. You're still only looking at another 4 years. Right? It isn't like the rest of your life. It's 4 years. Well, I've had ailments longer than 4 years. I don't get it. I don't get this. It's a cult. It's a huge fucking cult, but it's a cult.
Well, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I've seen two different tweets now. I don't know. I haven't really been listening. Explosive devices inside Capitol 2 have been deactivated.
Would you be surprised?
No.
No. No. Do you think McConnell's scared?
Well, he stood up today and tried before anything happened to tell him to don't do this. I think he had an inkling. I really do. Except he actually was too late too. I don't think he realized how far he let it go.
I think it's very easy, right? When you are in a position that a representative or a senator is in, and at the lowest level, not even like the Speaker of the House or the Majority Leader or anything like that. Just you're in that chamber. I think you lose a perspective, and you look at these idiots like it's a tool that you could use, right? It's a hammer that you could hit every nail you want to hit with. And they don't get that eventually they don't look at you like you. They look at you like you're part of an institution that we're trying to tear down. And if you at some point you become collateral damage. Right? Because whenever these assholes storm the Capitol, whenever they storm this building, and I say again, as soon as they step foot inside that building, they should have been shot. I seriously doubt that they were able or even cared about separating. Okay, no, that's McConnell's office. He's okay. Oh, that's Cruz's office. He's okay. Or that's just go on down the line. They're okay, but hey, there's somebody else's office. We got to go do something to that. They were just running in there, and whoever was in their way, they were just mauling. They were just tearing the shit out of whoever was in there. They didn't give a shit where it was. It's a mob mentality. You don't. That's so micro that people can't make that determination. They just want to get in there and start wreaking havoc. So you're this thing that you fed and this thing that you empowered for 4 years is now coming home, and it's looking for you because it can't tell the difference between you and the party that you oppose. You're all the same now because it's a mob mentality. I don't get how people can't see that. I mean, there's this false sense of power go to their heads because they have so much power over everything else that they think they can control a mob. Has human history taught you nothing? You can't control a mob. A mob can't control a mob.
And you got to realize that mob, other than recognizing maybe 2 or 3 senators, don't know who's who if they were still in that chamber.
I will tell you right now, if there were senators in that chamber, whenever they got in that chamber, they would not be able to that mob would not be able to tell who's the Democrat and who's the Republican. There's no way. Not a mob. And as much as people want to say, oh yeah, I can, you're full of shit. You can't. Okay? You can't. You've embraced the mob mentality. And it's a macro thing and not a micro thing. A micro thing is being able to recognize and to determine an individual. A macro thing is a group of individuals. And I promise you they can't do it. As much as they want to say they can't, they can't. They're lying or they're needlessly fooling themselves. Okay? This is why you can't control a mob. This is why you have to meet a mob with force. Strong force. And you have to be as barbaric as possible because a mob is barbaric.
Yeah, and this is just what you were saying too. Questions need to be answered. The plot to storm the Capitol was brewing for days in pro-Trump online media. Facebook, Parler, messaging boards.
Parlor. Yep.
Don't you think the FBI or whoever's monitoring this stuff would have put a warning out and saying, you know what, we better look at this pretty closely?
You know, I really wonder how I wonder how much the FBI knew and how much they were of what they knew, how much they were actually able to act on. Okay, because I promise you, they knew a lot more than they were able to do things with.
Yeah, you know what? And I still got that TikTok app, and I go through it a couple times a week just to troll MAGAs. And you know what? Looking at what I was reading the other night on their stupid things. Watch out for the 6th. We're taking the Capitol. Of course, I told a couple of them they're full of shit and assholes, but there you go.
So there you go. They're going to show Lou wrong. So it's your fault.
It's my fault.
I don't like how these people say unprecedented or this, that, or the other thing, right? Whenever they're talking about this shit. But it is. It's unprecedented. And I had a conversation with Master Grant earlier before we got on. And sometimes it's good, right? And I told him I think this needed to happen, right? And he responded with what the hell are you talking about? And I said, if there's going to be any kind of closure or any kind of reconciliation or any kind of putting the past behind you, the shit has to come to a head. And Lou, we've dealt with people who they really can't start to heal until they've hit rock bottom, right? And until they've gone to a point where I don't want to say a point of no return, but a point where they've fallen as far as they could. And what you're seeing, I think, today is us. Hopefully it is. Well, we've fallen as far as we could. And now we can start rebuilding and start getting back to some sort of normalcy. But this force has to be met with force as well. What do you think? Do you think that this is along those same lines or not?
What I think this may wake Biden and Schumer up to, there is no nicey-nicey right now. They have to do right now what they need to do as far as, I don't care if there has to be arrests or convictions, but you have to look at, okay, we need to bring the fairness doctrine back, like right now, while we have a shot. Make it illegal for, you know, I know there's freedom of speech, but when you have OAN and Newsmax and some of these pundits, maybe it's simple as, okay, you have freedom of speech. You know what? If it's not your regular news program, because I mean, yeah, you're going to have news and conservative angles. I understand that. Sean Hannity, Tucker, Laura Ingraham. This is a pundit hour. Our opinions are our own. They are not rooted in fact.
On a side note,
I don't know. Millions of Americans not dealing in reality.
John Ossoff has won Georgia. So the Democrats will hold a majority in the Senate. Well, it'll be even, but Harris will be the tiebreaker. Here's another question I have for you, Lou. how much responsibility to places like Newsmax and Fox Entertainment, how much responsibility do they shoulder for this? Okay, we have a woman who is now dead. We don't know what side she was on. We don't know what her role is. We don't know who shot her. We know nothing. All we know is a woman was shot in the chest and she's dead. How much responsibility do these places shoulder? Do these organizations shoulder for this shit? Who had the opportunity over and over and over again, countless times over 4 years, to continue their conservative spin, which I don't have a problem with spin. But there's a big difference between spin and flat out lying and flat out disinformation.
How much do they shoulder for as many Americans that are dead from COVID?
Yeah, good question. At what point do we start holding these places responsible? If we can. If we can. And if we can't, what do we do to make sure that we can hold them responsible? Because there's no excuse for it. It's recklessness. Okay? And that's the thing. It's reckless. It's not a matter of free speech, right? You have free speech, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? That's reckless. You can be held accountable for that. At what point do we start looking at these places like, look, you're not, it's like the Pittsburgh newspapers. Remember the two Pittsburgh newspapers we used to have way back when? We had the Post-Gazette and the
Pittsburgh Press.
Right? One was lean conservative and one leaned liberal. Right? They just leaned that way. I mean, you could almost pick up each paper and see a headline about the same thing. It was just slanted different. Okay, I can remember seeing that. I can't tell you how many times where maybe the headline would almost be verbatim, but the rest of the article definitely leaned one way or the other. I don't have a problem with something leaning one way or another. I do have a problem whenever you have two Pittsburgh papers and one is saying the sky is blue and the other one's saying the sky is green. You know, that's no longer a spin or a liberal or conservative view. That's one paper who's just flat out not even giving a shit about the truth. At what point do we hold them accountable for things? Or do we ever?
You know, you have, let's take Canada. I mean, I've been there a number of times. I don't live there. They have some type of policy for truthfulness in the news. And I believe they have a lot of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't like people lying to the masses. They have conservative view and liberal view. If it's a flat out lie, you're getting a huge fine.
And I really hate to break it to people, but you don't have any rights. Okay, you have indulgences. You don't have rights. If you think you have rights, Google 1940 Asian Americans. I'll tell you all you need to know about your fucking rights. You have no rights. You have indulgences. The government gives you indulgences. That's it. That's all you got. And if you think God's involved in this, you're fooling yourself.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you take that, what was it called? The Patriot Act after 9/11?
Mm-hmm.
That basically, now think about this. Did you know if you're within, and I think this is still in place, Frank would know this probably better than us, without me Googling it. Did you know if you're within 200 miles of a U.S. border, which includes us, if you got arrested for something and they said, you know, we think you're actually a terrorist from Iran or ISIS, you can be held indefinitely?
Indefinitely. Yep.
Okay. They just overrode the Constitution on you.
Right. And we made it legal.
You know, you think of it as the crow flies, let me think, we're about, 120 miles from Canada as the crow flies? The border?
I don't know exactly, but I'm more than willing to say yeah, I can handle that.
I bet I'm not too far off.
No, I bet you're not either. Yeah, I bet you're not either. Yeah. There's no excuse, Lou. There's no excuse. The only thing I can tell you is if you're going to describe it, the only way to describe it is reckless. That's it. Reckless. Recklessness. How many times we both have kids? The main goal, the main theme that I've tried to instill on my son time and time again. I'd have never addressed it I shouldn't say never, but very rarely have I addressed it directly as recklessness. But their actions that pissed me off the most were reckless actions, were not responsible actions. Right? You can have whatever view you want. You can do it, but be responsible in your actions. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard. I looked at what happened today and what's going to happen tonight, because it's going to get worse. I promise you, dude, it's going to get worse. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, it's reckless, it's irresponsible. I mean, I can go back to my training and say it's incredibly disrespectful and cowardice and all those things that Master Grant and I and everybody who has a master's in any kind of art will tell you. But at the end of the day, it's reckless. This is a result of 4 years of one branch of our government being incredibly reckless and one chamber of another branch of our government enabling the recklessness. This is what you have. What you're seeing tonight, what you're seeing in that corner, in that top left-hand corner, is a result of 4 years of recklessness. And people should be held accountable for that. Because at the end of the day, that's all it is. It's reckless. It has nothing to do with an ideology. It has nothing to do with a view of America or an ideal of which way you think America should swing, for lack of a better term. It has everything to do with the actions of people who are in a position that attracts followers. And this is reckless. What you're seeing now is weak people who have been victims of reckless leadership. And this is what we have. I don't know any other way to explain it. Oh, no, there was no lack of... No, I disagree. There's been no lack. This is Trump saying things were stolen from you, when in reality, right, he fucked up. People spoke. People got tired of the bully punching him in the mouth, and they punched back. And instead of at one time in his 70 whatever years, one time him being a man, and for 4 years I've sat on this very show in whatever iteration we've had and said this guy isn't a man. And all these assholes followed him. They all followed him.
Did he ever come out and try and do anything after this today?
No. He came out with some stupid ass tweet that said, hey, don't do that or whatever the fuck it is. It was the worst shit I've ever seen in my life. The fact of the matter is Pence, right? Pence was stronger than him today.
Basically, you have, and he proved it again today. He's a coward and a bully hiding behind a phone, hiding behind an iPhone.
And look how many assholes are willing to follow that. Right? Whether you like it or not, you're responsible for all of this shit. You're responsible for it. He's responsible for it. That fucker should be arrested 4 hours ago. He should have been arrested 4 hours ago.
There should be an up and down vote for impeachment in the House tonight and send it right over to Mitch and say, this is you with history. What are you going to do about it?
I mean, this is who was that asshole in Waco, Texas? The Branch Davidians.
Oh,
Koresh? David Koresh?
David Koresh.
Who was the one in with the Kool-Aid?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones. This is the same shit. Dude, this is exactly the same shit. It really is. It's exactly the same shit. It's a cult.
And what's the cult say? Everybody's lying to you but me. And that's
But me.
exactly what...
The only person you can trust is me.
Not the 18 other people that say I'm wrong.
Right. Just me. And look at how many assholes were willing to go along with it. If I'm going to put a positive spin on this whole thing, this is the only thing you need to prove that there is a living God. Because look at these assholes. We never would have survived as long as human race has if it wasn't for divine intervention. Right? This is it. You want to know how motherfucking stupid the human race is? How stupid we are and how we should have died off hundreds of thousands of years ago? All you got to do is look in your top left-hand corner. And that's the only thing you need to know, that there is a God. That's it. It's right there. Because this idiocy, we should have died off. We should have killed ourselves a long time ago. We should have.
You know what? And this asshole still has 2 weeks if they don't do something tonight or tomorrow.
You want to take bets on anything happening?
Don't forget, he put people in charge of the Defense Department that may listen to him. I don't know if it would go past to the military, but
Nothing's going to happen. We're going to wake up tomorrow. We're going to say, "Oh, what happened yesterday was sad and it was tragic," and they're going to come up with all the buzzwords and all the talking points there is, and nothing's going to happen. Not a damn thing. Nothing.
that's the worst part. Here you go. That's
No one is going to be held accountable for anything. Or there might be arrests made, right? That asshole Proud Boy's stupid son of a bitch motherfucker. He got arrested for some stupid bullshit, and maybe or maybe not he was involved in all this. Who the hell knows? But that's all you're going to see. Right? 10 days, maybe 30 days in jail. Maybe if there's a pissed off judge. That's it. That's it. I'm 52 years old, Lou. Do you think I really give a shit about a month of my life? Right? You think it really matters? A whole month? Right? It's terrible. It's terrible. Capitol building is secure now, according to the House Sergeant at Arms. Why the fuck is he not walking across town and arresting that asshole in the White House right now? Still boggles my mind. It still boggles my mind. I don't even want to know what's going to happen on the 20th. What happens on the 20th?
I hope there's a damn snowstorm.
I mean, most of it was virtual anyhow, but where the hell is his swearing in going to take place? Where the hell is Biden and Harris's swearing ins? Swearing in. Where the hell is that going to take place?
Should be done inside, maybe. Who they're going to let somebody out there with a sniper rifle?
You think I want to take that chance? I'll be honest with you. A month ago, I wanted to go to D.C. on the 20th. Right? I wanted to be in that crowd. I'll be honest, I wanted to be in that crowd for Harris more so than Biden, but still, I wanted to be there. I don't want to be anywhere near that place now.
I mean,
Nowhere near it.
Can they protect those two?
I don't know. The Secret Service is pretty good. I remember being in Beaver County, and I forgot where the hell it was, so I'm sorry. Whenever Obama was running his first term, whenever he was running, and he was there, and Nick was young at the time, and Lisa and I took him, and Lou, I saw snipers everywhere, and this guy was running. He wasn't even president yet, right? I mean, you felt the weight of everything on your shoulders. And he gave a stump speech that he gave the day before in someplace else, and he was going to give again wherever the hell he was next. But you felt the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you felt, I don't want to say oppressed, but you knew that there was somebody above you somewhere with a gun pointed at you.
See, I never saw Obama. Remember, I don't know if you were there when Clinton was running in 92. He was at the Lawrence County Fair.
Yeah, he was at the fair, yeah.
I was within 50 feet of him, me and my kids and my wife, and we stood there and waited till they got there. But you know what? That was 30 years ago.
Yeah, big difference, right?
And I saw the year before that, we happened to be in Disney World vacation. We took the kids. And I got to see HW give one. Remember when he did the 1,000 points of light?
Mm-hmm.
He gave one of those away at Disney World when we were there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we didn't even know it was happening, but like, okay, what's going on here? Then we realized, okay.
The presidency,
you know,
yeah. Yeah.
But years security and thing as there is now, I bet there was probably, I'm sure the Secret Service was there.
I'm sure they were, yeah.
You know, they kind of blended in. You know.
Well, I remember telling my wife, you know, we saw people like up on fire escapes and on roofs or whatever, and I was like, you understand, these are the guys they want you to see, right? Those aren't the guys that are here with us. These are the folks that they want you to see. Right? I mean, it was surreal. It was great. I had a great time. You know, I feel like it was like one of the best things that we ever did, politically wise, or you know, socially, or whatever you want to say. And I was very happy that I was there and was a part of that. But boy, you felt it. You know, you felt. You know, it was eerie. It was an eerie feeling. As much as excited as I was to be, and I was, I don't know, probably maybe 50 yards away from the stage, right? I mean, we had Nick, and Nick was way young at the time, so we really weren't trying to get, you know, real close because we had, you know, a child with us. We wanted to be able to see and hear, and we were happy with that, right? You know, but man, it was as excited as you were to see this. You felt like, oh man, I sure as hell hope I'm just another face in the crowd. I don't want anybody's attention because I don't like what's going to happen if I'm the subject of anybody's attention. Right? It was awful, exciting and awful at the same time. It really was. It was different. Well, night has fallen on DC, and if we take a look at MSNBC, which is what our feed has been, which, to be honest, Lou, I'm a little disappointed that I'm using MSNBC, but I am. Right? There we go. That's a little bit better. I still think we're not going to see. We're going to see some shit tonight.
That almost looks like a bunch of rubberneckers as compared to protesters, right there.
I almost hope they're the anti-protesters, or the people who are just there to take up space so the protesters can't do their shit. Well, no, there's a Trump flag. Never mind. Let's see, right away it goes out the window. Boy, there's a lot of white people there, isn't there? A lot of white males there. Holy shit.
Trump loves the uneducated.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. So, well, I don't know, Lou. I think there's going to be some skirmishes, but I don't think there's anybody that's going to try to storm the Capitol again tonight. What do you think?
Oh, there won't be anybody storming now. There's going to be too much security.
Yeah, I think so.
There's some people getting ass chewings right now.
And there should be. There really should be. There was no excuse to let somebody into those chambers. There really wasn't. I mean, you had photographers taking pictures of these guys, right? You had media showing these people, and there's no excuse for it. All right, Lou. What do you say we call it a night?
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. I'm still completely convinced this had to happen if we were going to get any kind of closure to this, but that doesn't mean by any indication at all that I'm happy about it. But I think it was necessary. Hopefully I'm wrong. In any case, we will be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Frank will be with us tomorrow. He had a prior engagement with his son tonight, so he couldn't make it. But I don't know, Lou. I'm rather embarrassed. I got to be honest. I'm rather embarrassed today. I am. It's terrible. Until tomorrow, though, folks. Stay safe. Goodbye. Good luck, and God bless. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay. Bye-bye.